Hey everybody, Kyle, Driveline Baseball here. It's time for another question and answer file. Got some good ones on Twitter and some other ones I wanted to touch on. First things first, prime recruiting season. It's fall, so you're going to hear from college coaches. Some scouts want to hear your fall schedule. Some guys are on scout teams and that kind of thing. First and foremost, if you're under 18 or you're a college guy, you need to not be an idiot on social media. Okay, so that means Twitter, Facebook. If you don't think scouts and recruiters check this, you're stupid. So, that's enough of that. Stop ranting about your girlfriend that broke up with you, how hard you're grinding, all this other stuff. Stop. That's not you anymore. Unless you want to go to a JUCO or someplace that doesn't matter, then fine. But if you plan on going to a top 50 school or going somewhere in the draft, all of that stuff gets used against you. So, please just try not to be that dumb. Okay, I had to say that because I have plenty of guys in the facility who are like that. Okay, first thing I wanted to talk about, work ethic. That's the prime separator, right? So, you get a lot of this stuff on YouTube. This is a tough subject because you have a lot of people on YouTube who talk about who wanting it more and all this other inspirational crap that people watch because it makes them feel good, right? It makes them go to the gym and that kind of thing. That's not work ethic. I'm sorry, that's not it. Pitching coach of a major Division I school that I consult for told me a really nice kind of a definition of hard work that he said. He said real dudes, meaning like real good guys, real dudes are real dudes all the time, not just in games, not in practices. And that really terrifies most people, that they have to be that good all the time. Some examples include, say, Trevor Bauer when he came here this offseason. He was throwing, didn't have a very good 2013, and we showed him a drill that he didn't particularly care for right at the first, right when he first did it, but then continued doing it and realized that this comes from a place of deficiency, and that if he can master this, maybe he'll throw harder, the mechanics will organize better, and then obviously 2014 has been a lot better for him. And once he bought in that this was a good idea and added it to his thing, he just did hundreds and hundreds of reps per day. I mean, just per day. He just threw a 2-pound ball for this particular drill 200 times a day at low intensities, high intensities, that kind of thing. Now, I'm not saying that's specifically what you need to do, but that's the mentality, right? Like you just pick one thing, you absolutely demolish that one thing as best you can, retest, evaluate, did I get better, did I not? That's work ethic, right? It's mentality. It's not any one thing. It's not quantity of work. It's not I was really good on my diet, I went to the gym. That's not it. It's mentality. We had another guy at a Division I school, Ben Wetzler. And so he was, having not, he led Division I in the ERA last year, but for him it was like his velocity wasn't where he wanted it to be, wanted to be higher. So I said, here's a specific program I'd like you to do. I want you to do it. It includes 150 to 250 throws per day. Ben was super happy to do it. I had to clear with the pitching coach and everything, but that's kind of where we went with that. And those are the guys that are going to succeed later in life. It's not this one thing that I did or this one particular thing. It's a mentality that you're always going to do it, that hard work is not defined by this ephemeral program that you have. That's not it. It's just that this is your life and this is what you're expected to do, and so you don't get kudos for doing it. Then once you have that mentality, that's real hard work. And hard work is defined by someone telling you you're a hard worker, not you saying you're a hard worker. That's just, again, that goes into the social media thing. Like, that's just gotta go. Don't ever say that you're a hard worker. That makes no sense. Okay, so other things, we had a guy, how hard work is for everybody. We had a guy in here, his name's Isaac. He's a high school junior, 6 feet tall, 160 pounds, pretty light. And he came in throwing 75 to 78 miles an hour after a full summer of training and commuting about an hour each way to our facility. He was, touched almost 88 miles an hour yesterday. So it's really impressive, and I mentioned this. Now we see that all the time. Guys gain a lot of velocity. It's not rare. We do that. But it was impressive because even I thought it was really above and beyond what he could do. But then I really focused on it. That's why I love being proved wrong. And so when I really focused on it, it's like, oh, look, Isaac was really diligent in his workouts, didn't make up excuses, was there every day, trained on his own every day, which is the most important thing. He didn't just leave it at the facility. He went home and did all of his work. And then he had the results that he did, which is great, but that's not what we usually see with high school guys. And so if you're in high school and you plan on playing somewhere big at a big Division I or MLB, or you want to play at the highest level, that's what those guys do. It's just their life, right? I have 2 pros in here, one from the Yankees organization, one from the Rays, who are training all off-season, and they're going to train 4 to 5 hours a day, 6 days a week. And that's just not hard work. That's just what they do. So I don't really want to bang on that, but I think it's really important now that we enter the fall-winter training program, that's kind of what you're supposed to be expected if you're going to play at that high level. So it's not saying you have to get to that right away, but that's what they're going to expect going forward. Okay, so let's talk about some more less stressful things, right? Someone had a question about thumb placement on pitches. Nice segue, I know. Okay, so they all talked about, like, why does it matter where the thumb is on throwing pitches, curveballs, whatever. And then the answer is, like, the actual alignment of the thumb, whether it's bent or straight, it doesn't matter. It gets disengaged well before the ball's ballistic, so it doesn't particularly matter where that's at. For a field purpose, it could matter, but actually for curveballs or cutters or anything like that, pitches with an offset that are thrown hard, actually it is kind of relevant. So you'll see a lot of guys, if they throw a cutter, they'll get here and say they're going to throw a four-seam offset cutter this way. They'll set it for their four-seam, thumb in the middle, then they will move here to cut the ball, and then their thumb just goes along with it. So the thumb is in the middle of the fingers there, as you can see, and then all this ends up being is a really bad four-seamer with no run, right? It just spins. So the point is that you have to set this thumb here. If this is how you're going to hold your four-seamer, right, and the thumb's in the middle, then this moves to cut the ball. This thumb cannot move at the same time because the whole point is finger pressure is offset to create that Magnus force thing. So personally, I throw sliders and cutters this with a two-seam grip on this side and pull down here. And so this way you can see my thumb. If I'm going to throw a regular two-seam, it's going to be here, thumb in the middle. I offset slightly, pull down on this side, my thumb is still in the center. So that's the biggest thing to focus on with the thumb. Talk about pitch effects. So it's a great thing, obviously. I love data. But how do we use pitch effects? You know, I see a lot of guys who pull up stuff on Trevor and Marcus Stroman and all that other kind of stuff. It's really cool to look at the data, but how is it even usable from a coaching perspective? You know, front offices use it to evaluate, say, injury potential, performance, how good a guy is, if he's losing velocity, if his release point's changing, right? Those are all very interesting things. But when it comes to amateur stuff, how can you use it? And I think that's actually a super interesting question because the application of the data is really cool. And so it's about trying to actually use some of that data. So watching a pitcher, how does he get guys out? Data mining some of the stuff. So for example, say Marcus Stroman, how does he use his four-seam fastball? You know, his two-seam fastball, his changeup, his curveball, slider. How do they overlay each other? How does he attack guys? Look for patterns in the data, and then maybe model yourself after that. And so I think that's really cool stuff. Some things you can do, and what we've done, you've seen on our videos and you've seen on our Twitter, is that we have a big wood frame with an acrylic sheet in front of it, and we put our high-speed camera behind it, put it in the right-hand batter's box, or left-hand, and we film our pitchers throwing, and then we analyze their tunnels, and then you can use that with like pitch effect stuff. Does it match up with what you see on big league guys? How do they get guys out? It's not always the quality of the stuff. It's about perception and stuff like that. Perry Husband talks a little bit about it, although I don't necessarily agree with all of his conclusions. I think it's really an interesting read, so definitely check that out. So it's kind of an overlay on how to use pitch effects. No real specific answers, but it's about taking the data, watching your favorite guy pitch, and then actually really looking into it. How does he do it? So check out like Brooks Baseball and Texas Leaguers for their pitch effects tools and really play around with it. All right, two things I want to talk about recovery since I got a million questions on this. One, this is my third unit of the Marc Pro, so it's very exciting. You can see that it is our thing we always blow up on Twitter. The Marc Pro has been huge for us. I can't say enough, to be honest with you. We use it post-throwing. We've used it pre-throwing a little bit, intra-workout as well. It's just huge. We have 3 units. You know, we use it on the primarily on the forearm and the shoulder, but some of the forearm stuff I'll talk about now. So, like, if this is my throwing forearm, we'll place, and this is the inside part of the elbow. We're going to place pads here on the inside part of the elbow, probably here, right on the pronator teres portion, the biceps, top of the biceps, and then the anterior shoulder. And that's just the general arm flush, if you want to call it that. The reason is it really helps, you know, activate that flexor pronator mass. Really, you know, chronic use of the Marc Pro has been shown to increase capillary function, increase blood flow to that area. So long-term, you know, adaptations that occur from that. But from an acute standpoint, using it right away really helps, you know, rush nutrients to that area during that really specific recovery window. You know, 20 to 40 minutes after stressful throwing activity. But we also use this stuff, which the Marc Pro people, not them necessarily, but a lot of people don't like. The Marc Pro people are aligned with Gary Reinl and guys who aren't a fan of icing. So personally, I don't particularly care for therapeutic icing either when it comes to just a giant towel full of ice. But I do like this unit, and I have like these units like this. This is called the Powerplay, and this is not all that exciting because you can't really see the sleeve. But they're actually compression sleeves full of cold gel packs, and they fit on your shoulder, elbow, knee, hip, that kind of stuff. It's primarily for physical therapy. But I was really interested because it insulates the cuff, basically like a blood pressure monitor, with ice in it. It inflates, helps kill the swelling, and use ice in the area. Most people say, well, you like the Marc Pro and they don't like icing, so why do you like icing? I think that's kind of an interesting question. Icing itself is not something I'm a fan of. However, ice does work great for reducing like secondary metabolic damage. So say like local edema or swelling or something like that. The first thing you should do is fix your mechanics and fix your training so you don't have ridiculous inflammation. Okay, so but until that happens, the Powerplay is great for stuff like making sure that swelling is limited. And it's not about treating the specific injury or a specific swelling. Like, you don't want to become addicted to it, but it does help limit the spread of damage, right? And that's the main reason that we use it. We'll also use it in combination with the Marc Pro, though not at the same time, although you have seen stuff on Twitter. We've tested it a little bit. We'll use it after the Marc Pro or maybe before the Marc Pro to really reduce that damage. Right now we're trying to do before and then use the Marc Pro after to rush nutrients to it, because icing does slow the recovery rate, but it does also at the same time limit secondary damage, which is really important. So that's the stuff people have asked me a ton of times on Twitter, so I wanted to go over that. So that's the rest of the question and answer. If you guys have any questions, feel free to shoot them to me again at Driveline Bases on Twitter, and we'll see you there.